Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. Now, we're going to talk more about Oliver Anthony and the reaction to his song later, but here is YouTube music critic Anthony Fantano finding racism and problematic geographical themes in the lyrics. Just another lefty losing it.
He's drawing a geographical line here as well between North and South, using Richmond, Virginia as that dividing line. With that, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. You know, he's like bringing up old, bitter North-South ideological disconnections that go back to the Civil War era. Drawing this North-South line and claiming that, it's those people from the North that want to control us and tell us what to do. There's a lot of really bad and toxic and often bigoted political baggage that comes with, that North v South binary.
Kosha, there's something toxic, but I don't know if it's Oliver Anthony's song.
Indeed. I think that was, he's sort of all over the place and reaching intellectually to try and tied to history.
He's also an economist, apparently, because he also gives us some economic commentary there, which is, It
was all over the place. It was a little bit hard to follow, but here's the bottom line, I think, for this. This song has tapped into something that there's obviously a deep dissatisfaction on many levels in the country, and you see that manifesting in different ways, whether it's the rise of a candidate like Trump that was very controversial, but he was a manifestation of that dissatisfaction in the country, or in the musical arena, these songs debuting at #1, I think it was 37% of all music downloads in the last week is this song. So he's tapping into something. And the reason why Richmond and the geography, as this YouTuber was getting at, is important is because it is one of those states that's very rural. There's a rural divide, and then there's the urban divide of basically the DC glitterati set living there, and that's kind of what he's talking about, the ruling class and the rural class. Everybody gets it.
Well, that's
it's not that hard.
It's actually, that is very obvious, and yet it seems to go completely over this critic's head, who's obviously thought about this long and hard, but that very obvious point that speaks to so many people seems to be completely lost on him. It's not just Oliver Anthony triggering the lefties. Before him, Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Small Town, was triggering the hysterical and hateful left, and it still is.
The Jason Aldean song, Try That in a Small Town, is really bad. But anyway, if you're a white person and you identify with it and you want to defend it and be vocal about the fact that you like it and you understand it, and in the face of black people telling you that the song is racist and the video is incredibly racist, you want to scream that it's not racist. Whether a song is racist or not, that makes you inherently racist.
I mean, these people are completely, well, the left is losing it. That's why they're in the segment. But it's also interesting that we're having this golden run for country music at the moment in the US. A couple of weeks ago, the top 3 songs were all country songs. I think it's the first time that's ever happened, and Jason Aldean was #1. And of course, Oliver Anthony with a song that he wrote in front of his caravan he lives in, having millions of downloads, and like you said, #1 on the Apple charts.
Yeah, and I think, country music in general tends to have an audience that leans a particular way, and you just see this complete divergence from the rest of the music industry that's gone very much the other way. And then within that, these upstarts are tapping into something that's real and deep, and people have a yearning for more content, whether it's entertainment content, musical content, news content that speaks to their problems. They're tapping into that. I think it's actually a very interesting story for independent artists too, that these people coming out of nowhere, and you can create a song, put it on the internet, and become an overnight success is actually a fascinating part of the story also.
Absolutely. Now here is a woman having what appears to be a meltdown, which she helpfully filmed and put on the internet for us. And it's all over what seems like a rather unremarkable interaction with a man.
Women do not want to be spoken to in public by strange men. I was just leaving the hardware store because I'm a construction girl, and I was deciding whether or not to jaywalk. And I was waiting patiently to see if there was a moment when there was going to be a clear, safe path for me. And this man in a minivan, I'm locking my car doors. This man in a minivan slows down and starts waving at me and yelling, "Go." And I was like, "No, there's cars coming, not safe." And he goes, "Go." And I was like, "No, you drive. Like, you're endangering people."
Calm down, love. You're going to hurt yourself. I mean, these girls, they go on the internet and have these meltdowns over the most mundane interactions. I mean, imagine if you actually had a crisis to face, what would happen? Now, you know how you can stump the left and make them lose it? By asking them the simplest questions like, what is a woman? Watch this woman confidently explain that people can't identify as a different race because of genetics, but science doesn't apply when talking about gender.
Can you identify as a black person?
No,
Why?
because I'm not black.
I'm not a woman, but I can identify as a woman according to you.
If you transition, maybe.
What defines a transition?
Like, if that's your goal, you know?
If you believe it.
Sure.
If you believe you're black, why aren't you black?
Well, that's just not, that's like genetics. That's like ancestry. Like, you're black, right?
You're also born a man or a woman. It's the same thing. That's also genetics.
Okay, I'm over it.
She's over it. I bet you are, love. Let's now watch a clip of a tolerant, law-abiding lefty burning a Trump 1 sign. First he kicks the sign, then he comes back in the dead of night to burn it. He's still in his bike gear, Kosha. Was he just cycling around all day waiting for darkness to fall before doing that? Good news, that lefty losing it has been caught. There was a reward offered after that footage went viral, and he's been arrested in North Carolina. But it just shows you these lefties cannot cope with any sort of dissenting view. And it's something I noticed in the 2020 election when we were covering it in the States. You'd go to red cities where there were Trump signs everywhere, and you would see Biden signs and they weren't vandalised, the houses didn't have their windows smashed, people tolerated it. But when you were in the blue cities with the Biden signs everywhere, you saw not a single Trump sign because you knew what was going to happen. They were going to be vandalised. So it does seem to be that we've allowed one side to behave in this lawless manner. When they see a sign they don't like, they feel it's their rightful duty to destroy it.
There is a growing belief in the U.S. right now of this two-tier justice system, and we always talk about it at the high levels of one side being indicted and criminalized and not the other. It trickles down even to something as simple as signs and trespassing and vandalism, I think, as you noted. And there's that saying that Trump in particular lives rent-free in people's minds. So clearly we're in 2023, it's way over, and the guy had a lot of time on his hands still in his bike gear, as you mentioned, coming hours later to finish the job.
Yes, he did try to kick that sign down, but it was built in a very sturdy fashion because it stood up until he burned it down. Now, we've got more wisdom from CNN. We love that. Apparently, pronouns are so 2022. We're all about neo-pronouns, and CNN wants to educate the great unwashed about the importance of pronouns or neopronouns. They write, neopronouns are used by non-binary, transgender and gender non-conforming people because they offer more freedom of identity. Per the LGBTQ advocacy group, the Human Rights Campaign, neopronouns are a step towards a society where people can more fully express all parts of themselves. Then they give us some examples, Kosha. They're very helpful. They say pronouns like fae, fair. They're commonly pronounced fae, fair. And they give an example of how you can use it. You say, Faye told me that Faye's best friend is in town this week. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But If you were diligently watching the Rita Panahi show, including the overtime edition on Tuesdays, well, you would have already known all about neopronouns. We've already educated you on this madness. Remember this?
But why would a person want to use spores pronouns? For example, a person who has been struggling with gender lately. This person has already tried using he, ze, it pronouns, but still doesn't feel right using those. So this person wants to try neopronouns that relate to nature. Therefore, spores pronouns could feel relatable, especially because this person feels a strong relationship with nature. But anyway, here's how to use spores pronouns in sentences. Spore is such a wonderful person. Spore's smile is so contagious. In fact, I saw Spore make a whole audience smile. I think Spore should be very proud of Spore self. Oh my goodness, we made it through!
Try to keep up, CNN. We were teaching people how to use neopronouns back when you were pretending BLM rights were mostly peaceful. I mean, we've brought you all these neopronouns, but it is absurd, Kosha, because we're literally now talking about hundreds, if not thousands, because you could identify as anything. There was spore, fey, it could be an object, it could be something out of nature. And again, there's this requirement that if you are to be fully inclusive, you have to pander to this delusion.
And it makes no sense at all. If only they channeled all that energy into learning an actual language. Maybe learn Latin. They'd be ahead by now instead of inventing a new one that no one can keep up with. And another quick point I would make too is that article probably cost over $100,000 in terms of all costs when you just look at the journalist's salary and the editorial and everything that it takes to do that. That's the kind of stuff they're putting out instead of real stories that people would love to read instead.
And the way it was promoted, there was really no one saying, wait a second, is this advisable? Is it good for society? Should we be entertaining it? No, it's all just a step in the right direction.